I'm about to say something that might sound a bit crazy given what every other creator on the face of the planet is saying about AI at the moment. And that is that one of the biggest opportunities of the AI gold rush that we're experiencing right now is in-person events. I know, sounds a bit weird, but by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how AI is creating a massive opportunity for coaches, communities, and info business owners to absolutely dominate their industries with in-person events. Before we dive in, my name's Andy Monroe, co-founder of Bullish Events. Over the last 5 years, we've been able to generate over $10 million in revenue from in-person events. We've had 6,400 attendees come through our experiences, and we've maintained an average attendee satisfaction score of 4.7 out of 5 across all 6,400 attendees. And I say all of that to increase the trust that you have in me to not waste your time with this video, which is a perfect segue into the first reason why in-person events are so powerful and important in the AI era, and that is trust, or what some people like to call the trust recession. Now, it's not really a secret that there is a trust recession happening in the coaching and info space at the moment. I'm not saying that there's no trust left in the industry, but it's just a lot harder to get people to trust you. The coaching space has been around for a while now, and yeah, there's been a lot of good that's come from it, but there's also been a lot of bad. So there's a lot of contributing factors that are just making it harder to gain trust. But because it's very hard to gain trust these days, trust is a very valuable currency. So if you can build it with your prospects, your potential leads, even your current clients, it's very, very valuable. Now, like I said, there's a lot of contributing factors as to why it's so hard to gain trust these days. A few of these bad actors. So there have been people in the industry that have scammed people, taken money, lied about their claims, whatever it is. There's a lot of noise in the industry. I'm sure everyone watching this video has either experienced or knows somebody that has experienced a bad actor in the coaching industry, which is unfortunate, but it's just what happens when an industry grows so fast. Also, this one's more recent, but AI slop content. And I just learned too that slop was one of the most popular words in the English language in 2025, which is kind of crazy. But the amount of AI slop content that's being posted online right now is really decreasing the trust people have in online creators. And I'm not saying that AI is bad. I actually love AI. It's completely changed the way that we run our business, and I think it's overall a net positive thing. We're both not going to sit here and lie and say that the amount of AI slop content that's being flooded into the industry is a good thing. I think it's very problematic, and something is going to have to change, or this trust recession is going to keep getting worse. And the last thing I want to talk about is just high volumes of contradicting content. So at this point, everybody and their dog is posting content on social media, short form, long form, written, LinkedIn, X, whatever it is. People are posting a lot of content, and you can scroll through your Instagram feed, or you can go onto X and scroll through your timeline, and you'll see people talking about the same subject, but saying two different things. Someone will say, paid ads and paid media is the only way to scale your business, while the next post will say the complete opposite. It'll say organic content is the only way to grow your business. Then the next one will say that paid ads and organic content doesn't work, and that cold outreach and emails is the only way to grow your business. The truth is, this is a very binary way of thinking, and none of those sayings are right or wrong. It really depends on the context of their business, the industry, and what's working well for them. But for the average consumer looking to buy a course from a creator or buy a coach or hire somebody, it's very hard to choose who to work with when everyone's saying there's one way to do something and they're all different. And this, of course, makes it much harder for a buyer to put their trust in somebody and want to work with someone. I'm sure there's other contributing factors, but these are the main three that I was able to isolate. But overall, the main problem that we're experiencing right now is a huge trust recession. It's harder to gain the trust of people. I want to touch on AI specifically real quick, because as I was doing some research for this video, I found some really interesting studies. And I'll be sure to link all of these sources down in the description so you can give them a read yourself. But a study done by the Melbourne Business School found that 66% of their respondents were using AI regularly, but only 46% trusted AI. That same study found that as adoption of AI is increasing, trust is declining. And finally, in that same study, 87% of the respondents wanted stronger laws against AI misinformation. So, of course, this is one study. The sample size could be too small, too insignificant, but it points out some very interesting things. One of those things is that as more people use AI, trust is decreasing, and also that the majority of the people that participated in this study wanted more laws against AI and misinformation, which shows that there is a lot of AI misinformation, or at least people think there is a lot of AI misinformation that's circulating around the internet. And then I was reading through a study done by Reuters Institute that showed 58% of people worry about content authenticity online, and 70% think that journalists are knowingly spreading misinformation online. And I know this isn't really tied or correlated to the coaching industry, industry. But this all has to do with online content. And if you try to see the bigger picture here, if people are having a hard time trusting online content and having a hard time trusting journalists, and people think that these people are purposely lying to them online, that it's hard to trust content, it's hard to figure out what's real and what's not real, that mistrust in this online content is going to bleed over into the coaching industry. So I'm not saying that coaches and creators are online just lying to people left and right, but this massive wave of doubt and lack of trust has already started to bleed over into the coaching industry, and it's going to continue to happen. And the last point I want to point out in that study by Reuters Institute was that nearly 2/3 couldn't tell reliable news from disinformation or misinformation. So I just can't really emphasize how problematic this is, that people are having a really hard time understanding what's true and what's not true. And like I said, a lot of this stuff has to do with news and politics and journalism. But if people aren't trusting this content they're seeing online, and they think that journalists are knowingly spreading misinformation, they think that people are lying to them, that's going to start funneling into all corners of the online space, which will affect the coaching and info industry. And it's definitely already started. And then one more study found by the University of Maryland showed that AI-generated misinformation actively reduces trust and changes decision making. So this is just to write all this home. Like, why is this important? Why does it really matter if somebody doesn't trust your content online, or if it's harder to build trust with people, or that people are having a hard time trusting AI? And that's because this affects people's decision making. If somebody comes onto a landing page or checks out your profile or goes through your funnel and they trust you and they're open to you and they're open to hearing more about you, and they see your testimonials and they think that this is completely legit, that buying process is completely different than somebody who enters into your funnel. They see your testimonials, they see your copy, your VSL, and they're still like, yeah, you know what, this looks cool, but I also got scammed by this other person. Or, you know what, this is cool, but they posted a piece of AI content. It could be true, it could be fake. If they come into this situation carrying this mistrust, that's going to completely change their buying behavior. All right, so we talked about bad actors, we talked about AI slop content, we talked about high volumes of contradicting content. Now, why are events the answer? How do events build more trust between a brand and a consumer? And one aspect is you're just allowing people to step inside of your brand. There's no AI, no screen separation, no editing, no second takes. It's just a real, raw human experience. In other words, it's authentic, and these days people tend to gravitate more towards authenticity. People get to experience you, your energy, your value, who you are as a person in real life, which is much more powerful than getting to know you through some emails, some posts on social media, and maybe a virtual event. And something else to point out is when somebody comes across maybe your social media profile or your funnel or your website, and they see pictures of your events, they see pictures and photos and videos of you leading a room, standing up on stage, talking to people, actually like just hanging out with people in real life, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that builds a little bit more trust. People can make pretty much whatever claims they want, and it's really hard to verify. But with an event, it's very, very, very hard to fake an in-person event. I guess you could go and rent out a venue and hire a bunch of paid actors and stand up on stage for 10 minutes, take some pictures, and then let everyone go. That sounds kind of like a hassle, so I don't think very many people are out there doing that. When somebody comes across your brand and they see that you host in-person events, it just adds another layer of trust. Another reason why events are such a good way to build trust is because of oxytocin. So we're going to dive into some biology for a second. Oxytocin is a hormone that releases when we feel bonded and safe in a social environment. It's also released when we hug, shake hands, and have any physical interaction with another human being. Long story short, oxytocin for the most part is an in-person chemical. Yeah, you can get traces of oxytocin in a virtual event or in an online community, but the only way for it to be fully released is in an in-person environment. And what happens when oxytocin is released is someone feels safe, they feel bonded, which then leads them to build trust. I mean, that's almost the definition of trust if you think about it. If somebody feels safe with you and your brand, that means they trust you. And an amazing way to build that trust and that safety with somebody is to actually bring them into an in-person event. And then going deeper on the bonding aspect, we actually bond and create relationships through shared experience. And again, you can kind of replicate this online, but you and me both know that the best way to have a shared experience with somebody is in person. So if you host an in-person event for your business and you have your attendees there, this is a shared experience which creates a bond, and bonding leads to trust. Last thing I'll mention here before we move on is energy. So energy is very important when it comes to in-person events, and it's not something that really comes into play in a virtual experience or in a virtual community. Like you can kind of communicate your energy through words, but when you're in person with somebody or a group of people at an event, you can feel the energy. The energy is actually tangible. You can feel it in the room, and that energy is contagious. So if somebody comes to your in-person event and they feel the energy of your brand, they feel the energy of the other attendees, they feel the energy of you, and that energy checks out and it's actually good energy, that energy is going to impact the individual and most likely get them on the same wavelength. Humans are very sensitive to energy, and if somebody can jump into your ecosystem, take a step into your brand in real life, and the energy is good and it's positive, that's going to significantly increase the amount of trust they have in you and your brand. And this is only something you can do in person. It's very, very difficult, maybe even impossible to replicate virtually. So to summarize this trust recession section, there is a huge problem. People are having a harder time trusting creators, brands, and people they see online. Yes, this is happening on the internet as a whole, but this is definitely bleeding into the coaching industry, and AI is actually serving a huge role in this. Like I said, I love AI. I think it's amazing. I think it's going to be one of the most important things humans have ever created throughout history. But we can't deny that it's very hard to trust AI all the time. And when we see somebody posting AI content or an AI generated image or an AI generated video, that comes with a little bit of skepticism. So all of this mistrust with the bad actors, the AI content, the high volumes of contradicting content, it's creating this trust recession. And based on my experience and what we've heard with our clients and what we've done with our clients, events are the best way to just completely erase this trust recession, at least from your business and your brand. It's a way to separate yourself from the noise and to build a business that's fueled by trust, which is very, very important in 2026 and beyond. The next reason why in-person events are so important in today's world and why they're such a great opportunity is actually loneliness. And I'm going to share a story real quick. So back in the pandemic, I know depending on where you lived and what your beliefs are, the way you were impacted by the pandemic was different. But I went to school in California, so the school was shut down for a long time. And during that period, I was very, very connected with people virtually. I was attending virtual classes. I would call people all the time. I'd FaceTime people. Me and my friends would do virtual hangouts, and we would try our hardest to stay connected despite being locked in our houses and not being able to go back to school. And during this time, I was talking to people way more than I did when I was hanging out with them in person. I felt like I was always talking to somebody just because I was trying to overcompensate for this weird feeling of not being actually connected with people in person. And I will say personally, and I've heard this from so many people, that was the loneliest period of my life. So that alone shows that virtual is not enough to satisfy the human connection. We are biologically engineered to connect with other people in person. We're social creatures. We seek out tribes. We seek out communities. We thrive when we are together with other people in person. And during this time, we were all so virtually connected, but it just didn't do it. It didn't satisfy the itch. People were so hungry and so ready to get back to doing things in person, going out to bars, hanging out at different social gatherings, whatever it was. Everyone was so excited to do things in person again. So right now, when I take a look at the coaching and the info space, there's a ton of virtual. There's a lot of virtual events, a lot of webinars, VSLs, funnels, online communities, which is great. These are all amazing things, and it's cool that we can do that. But it's never truly going to satisfy the connection aspect that people are seeking. Then all of this combined with the fact that Gen Z, one of the most virtually connected generations of all time, if not the most virtually connected generation of all time, is suffering from a 79% loneliness rate. Millennials, 71% loneliness rate. We have social media, we have forums, we have virtual events, we have all this virtual stuff. It's so easy to be connected, but people are still suffering from chronic loneliness. So obviously this virtual connection, all these virtual options just isn't enough. Based on the research I was doing, we arguably live in the loneliest period in human history, but we also live in the most virtually connected period in human history. So it's obvious that virtual isn't enough. Similar to oxytocin, you can get trace amounts of this. You can get trace amounts of connection. People can get kind of satisfied through online communities and virtual experiences, but connection and belonging can only truly be satisfied when it happens in person. And actually, a great example of this is school. So we partnered up with school to help them launch their own in-person event series. And as you know, school is a virtual platform. Love what they do. Actually, I'm a part of multiple school communities, and we own a school community. Link in the description. They are very much so an online business for online communities. That being said, they're very bullish on in-person events, and we help them do, I think we did 4 events with them. And that's because they realize that community can only be maximized when it happens in person. So if they are the ones that are hosting in-person events, all these people that are on their platform that have online communities are like, oh, hey, school's doing this. Like, it would be cool if I gathered my community in person, or it'd be cool if I, met somebody in person and got lunch, whatever it is. They're kind of incentivizing and pioneering this world of online communities going in person. That's because they see this game, they see what's happening in the world, and they see that in-person connection is so incredibly important. So huge shout out to school. It was awesome working with them, and I totally believe in what they're doing. All right, we've touched on a few different topics, but how does this all connect to the coaching and info space? So first thing that we discovered here is that there's a loneliness epidemic. I know we're using all these crazy words like trust recession, loneliness epidemic, but people are lonely. 79% loneliness rate amongst Gen Z, 71% loneliness rate amongst millennials. So what happens when people are lonely? They seek out places to gather and to connect. And how perfect would it be if people are seeking out a place to gather and connect, and you offer that with your business? Somebody's lonely and they're an online marketer and they're looking for a place to connect with other online marketers, and you happen to run an online marketing community. which you host in-person events. And they're like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm lonely and I'm also interested in online marketing. I might as well just join this community so that I can go hang out with other online marketers. Or you have an offer that's focused on investing and you teach people how to invest in different stocks and crypto. Somebody comes along, they see your brand, they're interested in your offer, but they also see that you do in-person events and they just want to get in the room with other people that are interested in stocks, investing, and crypto. It's perfect. You provide the offer and you provide the place to gather. And I'll tell you what, people are seeking out places to gather in person now more than ever. So just to recap the opportunity, we worked with School, an online community platform. We helped them launch their own in-person event series. People are seeking out tribes and communities now more than ever. And with how much noise there is online and how many people are posting short-form content, long-form content, tweets, LinkedIn posts, if you can just build your passionate community, your community of super fans, your cult-like following, that just completely takes you out of that game. You no longer have to go and search for other people's attention. You just have this really powerful community that actually draws people in. It has like a gravitational pull. Having a strong and passionate community is such high leverage in 2026. And the best way to build a strong and passionate community is through in-person events. And there are a ton of benefits for both your clients and your business. Now, with all of this context, we've talked about AI, we've talked about bad actors, we've talked about lack of trust, we've talked about loneliness. The last point that I want to bring up is the moat. And to explain the moat, I'm going to tell you a story. So I was a founding partner at a coaching company called FundLaunch. FundLaunch is an amazing company. If you are looking to start an investment fund, you should go check them out because they have an amazing product. And at FundLaunch, they still do this, but I'm going to say we were because I no longer work at FundLaunch, but we were helping people launch investment funds. And the investment fund space is dominated by senior people, professionals, gray-haired individuals that went to an Ivy League school, worked on Wall Street, and then launched their fund in their 50s and 60s. And it's very, very hard for a bunch of young 20-year-olds to break into the space and take over that industry. So during one meeting, we were trying to decide how we were going to build a moat around our business. And we decided that the best way to do this was through in-person events because we looked at Russell Brunson, we looked at Tony Robbins, we looked at all these other individuals that had completely dominated their industry. And the one consistency amongst them all, they all had different offers and different ways of communicating and they had different personalities. But the one thing they were all doing is they were hosting in-person events. So we decided that the best way for us to build a moat around our business and become the category kings of our industry was to start hosting in-person events. And that's exactly what happened. At FundLaunch, we were able to grow from $250,000 in revenue all the way up to $30 million in revenue in 5 years. And there's not a single competitor out there that is more known for helping emerging fund managers than FundLaunch. We were so well positioned. We had so much social proof. We had so many assets that were generated from these events, so many testimonials in such a strong community that it was really hard to get beat by anybody. And yes, we had a good product. Yes, it was a well-ran company, but the main reason why we were able to do that was through our in-person event strategy. Okay, so that was our experience at FundLaunch. That was why we decided to start hosting in-person events, and it led to us scaling up to $30 million in revenue in 5 years, and they have far surpassed that now. In-person events were a massive part of that strategy just because we wanted to dominate the industry. We wanted the positioning. We wanted the moat around our business. So why should you start hosting in-person events for your business now? So if you are running a coaching or an info business, selling info alone won't last much longer. AI is essentially decentralizing information. And of course, there's a lot of nuance. That's why courses and info is still so valuable. For example, I still buy coaching programs quite often because there's a lot of context that AI just hasn't captured yet, but who knows where AI could go. At one point, it could start to capture this context. It could start to provide information that's better than any course that you could buy online. We actually have no idea. This could not happen. This could happen. We're in uncharted territory at this point. But if I were to try to predict where the puck is going, I'd say selling info alone won't last much longer. And the next step, which is already happening, people are already starting to adapt to this, is info plus implementation plus community. So implementation could be info plus coaching, info plus one-on-one, info plus group. It could be info plus coaching plus a community to go talk to other people. It could be info plus a software product plus a community. Whatever it is, there needs to be more than just info. And based on what we did at FundLaunch, based on what we're doing with our clients, the best way to sell info, get amazing results for your clients, and build a very strong community that won't fizzle out is through in-person events. With just info and coaching alone, it could take weeks, months, even years for people to get results. But when you have an event that's focused on accelerating that process and getting people results and actually solving problems in their business, you can accelerate what takes months or even a year to do into just a couple of days. And like we said, this entire video, or you can go watch the other 50 videos I have on this channel, building a community, building a strong community that has a high LTV, that has passionate super fans that want to stay with you as long as possible, a place that's actually fun to hang out. The best way to do that is through in-person events. Of course, you can do it virtually. People have done it virtually, but the best way to do it and the best way to double down on community is through in-person events. And the last thing I'm going to mention in this moat section of the video is kind of the landscape of the coaching industry and why in-person events are so good for positioning. So right now, everyone's posting short-form content. Everyone's posting long-form content. Everyone's doing virtual events, but not everybody is doing in-person events. These things are easy to do. People are pumping out short form, pumping out long form, hosting virtual events. And I'm not going to say that these things are bad. Like, these things obviously work. Building a personal brand is good. If you're going to be doing an event to acquire clients and enroll clients, like I mentioned, in a previous video that Russell Brunson did funnel hacking live to enroll clients into his business. We did Fun Launch Live to acquire clients and treat it as an acquisition event. I would honestly advise people to start doing virtual events for client acquisition. It's just like you can do some really crazy numbers by doing a webinar, doing a virtual challenge, a virtual workshop. It's a very, very powerful tool for enrolling clients. But as you know, in the coaching and info space, enrolling clients isn't the only piece of the puzzle. There's so much more to it. And in-person events pick up where virtual events leave off. And if all of your competitors are doing short form, if all your competitors are doing long form, if all of your competitors are doing virtual events, if you're the one to do in-person events, you just go to a different level. You are on a different level than them, and your positioning is way stronger than somebody else that's not doing in-person events. And if you don't believe me, just go look at every other category king and industry leader in the coaching and info space. They are all either currently leveraging or have leveraged in-person events in some way or another to get to where they are today. So I'm not just some random guy talking on YouTube. This is a very proven model that pretty much every category king has leveraged, but no one's really talking about it. And I'm a big fan of watch what they do, not what they say. And they all have different offers. They all have different vehicles to teach you how to make money online or how to grow your business or your personal brand. But the thing they're using to get that message out to the masses is in-person events. And you just can't ignore that. Now, to tie the knot on the moat section, there are so many benefits that come along with hosting in-person events. If you want to hear more about all the other benefits, like I already said, I've made a ton of videos on this channel about the benefits of hosting in-person events. The LTV, the revenue, the community, the authority, the social proof, the trust, the marketing assets, all these things that happen when you host in-person events are extremely beneficial. But in my opinion, the most powerful aspect and the reason why we decided to host in-person events at Fun Launch and why we decided to start our business Bullish Events and help other coaches and info businesses leverage the power of in-person events. And that is the moat. Doubling down on your positioning and building a moat around your business with in-person events is one of the best moves you can make in 2026 and beyond. And it's because the trust recession, it's because the loneliness epidemic, it's because the coaching industry is just so noisy and loud. For all of these reasons, building a moat around your business and strengthening your position is incredibly high leverage. All right, my promise at the beginning of this video was to show you how AI is creating a massive opportunity for coaches, community owners, and info business owners to dominate their industry with in-person events. Of course, this is kind of a controversial topic. Not very many people are talking about it. And of course, there's no binary rule that says this is true or not true. So I'd love to open up to some discussions in the comments. This is just what we believe. It's through our experience. It's what's worked for us. And that's why I'm making a video, because hopefully it could work for you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.